So let's talk about some of the discoveries and experiments that we made during this series of animations. I would like to bring us down here to where we left off with this new idea of animate next frame, right? So we made a progress from basically running a very simple loop, which simply printed numbers from 0 to the maximum number, all the way down to displaying frame per second control of individual outputs. But this business is still unfinished. We still need to discuss what this program does in reality. And for this, I would like to make a little annotation to show you that essentially we come in here on the main thread of execution, right? So we execute this, and this main thread of execution starts this function. So we invoke the function. Function does what it does. It displays the first frame. Okay. Then what it does, it invokes the threading timer library function and says, invoke this again. As long as the frame index has not reached this maximum of 100, then we will stop doing it. And then every time this happens, the next time it says, again, invoke this function. And then again, right? And then again, and so 100 times this happens. So 100 times this is happening. And besides that, we keep delaying certain interval of time. So this next frame is displayed exactly at such a rate that we display close to 24 frames per second. But what happens to this main thread of execution? What happens to it is that it once it invokes the animate next frame the first time, it immediately drops down to this input. And so right now, this program, right, while the animation is still in progress and these numbers are still being progressed, and 100 times we invoke the same function in order to execute our animation, this input is already active and it's waiting for right here. It's using the empty string as a prompt. This is why it's invisible, but it's sitting here and waiting. So in reality, let's run this one more time. I'm just going to clear this annotation. And what I would like to do, right? So right now, I will just let this program finish. This is the last demonstration here. But what I would like to do right now is, instead of sort of like doing a little cheating here and using this empty prompt, try to use the usual prompt and say, press enter to exit my program. Okay, so let's run this again. Okay, I'm going to clear screen and rerun this. So this is our first progress bar. Then it's the same thing with the background added. Then we said that we can actually animate the entire background at any place where we like. And finally, we also added frame per second. So this is next demonstration. But look what happens now that I just said just press enter to exit the program, right? So this time, this output gets right in the middle of this animation because the first thread of execution does not wait for the remaining 99 calls to this animate next frame. And so it messes up the entire animation because it needs to be staying precisely on the same line. Because every thread, every call where we make our output shares the same screen. And so if here we use new line and press enter to exit the program, we interfere with our animation. What problem then we need to resolve is that we must wait for the animation to complete, and only then we can freely start using our console again. So we need to learn how could we synchronize with the work that is done by all these timer delayed threads of execution that display individual frames, and wait for all that work to be completed. Okay, so we could start doing it right away, and I'm going to bring back the invisible prompt, which will still happen ahead of still running animation, but this time it will not interfere with the output, right? So if I rerun this with the original version, so the first is the progress bar, progress bar with background. Now the frame by frame idea. And so this time, this is waiting for input, but the background threads are still running. Okay, but the initial frame, the main thread of execution, is already waiting, already sitting on this input. Okay, so it's just something that that concerns me, that we need to find a way to not to go ahead with anything else, but wait for the animation to complete for as long as it takes. And the reason for it is, again, because we'd like to be in charge of the animation speed, and that includes waiting for the entire animation to complete. So that's part of the controls that we need to would like to have in our toolbox. All right. So, but before jumping ahead and just like, implementing it somehow, deciding what we need to do, first, the next big idea. Okay. And this is the second big idea that we have here. Besides this technicality to wait for the animation to complete, what we would like to do is to recognize that our backdrop, this one line, like text line animation, is a useful concept which could be perhaps better organized by simply getting rid of global variables. Global variables are very, very difficult to keep track of. There could be everywhere in multiple modules, in multiple, pretty much anywhere outside of any function body. So they're not very pretty. This is why we typically refer them to them as ugly. Okay, so ugly global variables. So we want to sort of facilitate possibility to reuse this animation in other programs. Pretty much in any program that takes time to execute, we could add some animations, or we could just work on animations. So I'd like to use it as a concept. So far, all of these ideas that were successful. Then we also want to maintain maintain the code in such a way that it's easy to further develop it and add new features to the way we want to animate things. Okay, so with all of these three goals or three objectives, one possible solution is to add a new class. So I just did not want to throw this idea of class at the beginning of this demo, but rather I kind of held it back and I said, let's see what we can do by simply just using functions and this idea of one-line outputs. But this time we could encapsulate within an object this set of data attributes, such as what is the backdrop, what frame index we would like to use one at a time, what frame per second animation speed we want, and of course other, like it could be anything else that we'd like to add to this list, right? So we would like to create a new class, possibly naming it animated backdrop, and reorganize the code before we come back to this challenge that we need to wait for the animation to complete. Once we reorganize everything and have a new class which does everything that we're doing right now, but without global variables, then we're going to come back to further steps in terms of developing further development of this animation and adding new features.